On July 14 of this year, 4 days after finishing 3 years of military training, Princess Leonor stood on the stage of the Gran Teatre del Liceu in Barcelona and opened her speech at the Princess of Girona Awards with a line nobody expected. "I can't wait any longer," she said. "I have to confess it once and for all. I know that in principle I shouldn't reveal certain aspects of my intimacy, of my personal tastes, but I think the moment has come to talk about my favorite influencers." The room went quiet in that specific way a room goes quiet when it thinks it's about to get real information. And then she pivoted, cleanly and deliberately, away from anything resembling personal disclosure, and used the moment to redefine the word entirely, naming the 6 young award winners on stage with her as her actual influences, people who, in her words, train bacteria, fall in love with problems in order to solve them, discover exoplanets, and normalize kindness. No boyfriend. No secret. Just a redirection so well constructed that it became its own small piece of news. That 30 seconds on a stage in Barcelona tells you almost everything you need to know about how Leonor's personal life is actually functioning right now, not as a liability the palace is desperately containing, but as a tool she is starting to use with real skill. That's the story worth telling here, because it's a different one than the tabloid version. The tabloid version says Leonor's personal life is a constant source of leaks, scandal, and speculation that the monarchy is scrambling to manage. The more accurate version, based on what's actually been reported over the past year, is that the way Leonor handles her personal life, what she reveals, what she doesn't, when she leans into visibility and when she deflects it, has become one of the more deliberate and effective tools available to an institution that badly needs one. To understand why that matters, you have to understand the hole this monarchy is currently in, and why so much of its future credibility rests on one 20-year-old's ability to seem authentic without actually being exposed. Start with the institutional damage, because it's the backdrop against which everything Leonor does now gets read. The abdication of her grandfather, Juan Carlos I, in 2014 was itself a response to years of declining public confidence, and the years since have not been kind to his reputation, with subsequent revelations about his finances and personal conduct pushing him into self-imposed exile and keeping the monarchy's approval ratings under sustained pressure. That damage is measurable. A widely cited study out of the University of Murcia, sometimes referred to as the Crowns, found Spanish public opinion nearly split on the institution itself, with 51.5% favoring a republic against 48.5% favoring the monarchy, numbers that reflect an institution whose legitimacy is no longer assumed, but has to be actively maintained. That's the environment Leonor became an adult inside of. She swore allegiance to the Constitution at 18 in October 2023, not into a monarchy coasting on unquestioned support, but into one fighting, quietly and constantly, for its own continued relevance. Which is exactly why the way she's chosen to present her personal life carries more institutional weight than it would for almost anyone else her age. Danish outlet BT ran a piece just this past week arguing that international press increasingly views Leonor as the figure who could stabilize the Spanish crown after years of erosion tied to her grandfather, pointing specifically to her 3 years of completed military training across all 3 armed forces, her international schooling in Wales, and her upcoming political science degree is evidence that this is a princess being built for substance rather than spectacle. That's an outside read, not a Zarzuela press release, but it lines up with a pattern that's become increasingly visible over the past several months. Leonor isn't being kept at arm's length from public life to protect the monarchy's image. She's being brought forward, deliberately, as the person best positioned to make that image feel earned again. The Girona speech is the clearest single example of the strategy in action, but it's not the only one. This summer, Leonor and her sister Sofia were photographed at a Bad Bunny concert, an appearance that generated headlines less because of who they were with and more because of the simple novelty of seeing them somewhere so ordinary, doing something so unremarkable, enjoying a concert the way any young person their age would. Coverage of the moment leaned into exactly that framing, noting plainly that they have every right to enjoy themselves. A few years ago, that kind of appearance might have been treated as a security lapse or a protocol misstep. Today it reads as evidence of a monarchy comfortable enough to let its heir be seen having an actual life, calibrated but real, rather than existing purely inside official portraits and press releases. That calibration extends to how information about her gets managed more broadly, and this is where her personal life and the institution's survival strategy start to overlap most directly. Leonor is legally and constitutionally bound in ways almost no other 20-year-old is. Article 57.4 of the Spanish Constitution ties her eventual marriage to formal state approval, meaning her romantic choices carry consequences for the succession itself, not just her private happiness. Given that constraint, total silence about her personal life would be the safe, defensible choice, and for most of the past several years, that's roughly what the palace has maintained. What's changed recently is the emergence of controlled, selective disclosure, the Girona speech being the clearest case, where she reveals just enough personality, just enough voice, to feel present and authentic, while keeping the actual substance of her private life, who she's close to, what she does off-duty, entirely her own. It's a more sophisticated version of the same instinct that sent her to a public university this September rather than a closed, private one, visibility on her own terms, calibrated to build trust without surrendering control. This is also, worth noting directly, happening in an information environment her parents and grandparents never had to contend with. Every one of these calibrated moments, the Girona speech, the concert appearance, the choice of public university, exists alongside a much larger and murkier layer of AI-generated content and unverified tabloid speculation about her romantic life, her friendships, her supposed secret engagements, most of it originating from anonymous sourcing or fabricated entirely, designed to capture search traffic rather than report anything real. The gap between the deliberate, controlled version of Leonor's personal life that the palace and Leonor herself are constructing, and the speculative, often invented version circulating across social media and search results, is arguably the single biggest challenge the monarchy's communications strategy faces right now. It's not that people are asking too many questions about her personal life. It's that a meaningful share of the answers already circulating aren't answers at all, and the institution has limited tools to correct a narrative it never officially engaged with in the first place. Where this leaves the monarchy, structurally, is worth spelling out plainly. Leonor will, under the Constitution, become Spain's first reigning queen since Isabel II in the 19th century, a genuinely rare historical moment, ruling in her own right rather than as consort. That alone makes her a subject of enormous scrutiny independent of anything happening in her personal life. But the specific way she's being introduced to the public over these past several months, the military credibility built over 3 demanding years, the deliberate choice of a public university and a degree oriented toward governance rather than her father's path through law, the carefully staged glimpses of personality like the Girona speech, all of it reads as a coordinated attempt to make her feel earned rather than inherited, competent rather than merely next in line. Her personal life, in that context, isn't a separate track running alongside her institutional role. It's becoming one of the primary tools through which that institutional role gets legitimized to a public that, according to the numbers, is still genuinely divided on whether the monarchy deserves to exist at all. That's a heavier weight to put on a 20-year-old's Instagram-adjacent visibility, or lack thereof, than it might first appear. But it also explains why every small detail, a ring, a concert appearance, a joke about influencers, gets amplified into something that feels disproportionately significant. It's not disproportionate, actually, given what's riding on it. Whether this recalibrated, more visible version of Leonor succeeds in doing what BT and other international outlets are already speculating it might, meaningfully stabilizing public confidence in the Spanish crown after more than a decade of institutional damage, is something that will only become clear over the next several years, as she moves from cadet to student to, eventually, reigning monarch. But the strategy itself, controlled personal visibility as institutional repair, is no longer subtle. It's the clearest throwline connecting everything she's done publicly over the past 12 months, and it's likely to define how this monarchy tries to survive for the next several decades. Thank you for watching. If you found this useful, subscribe for more grounded, sourced coverage of the Spanish royal family, and let us know in the comments what you'd like covered next.